Alright, once again, another updated deck profile. This time on an updated Dualmajestar deck or a Astroea deck. Because Astroea got a completely new form that is basically a fusion of her original and her mask form combined. And this time she does not have the mask on and she has both powers together. I have to say this is a pretty cool little upgrade. I love the idea where they basically called this Dualmajestar, referencing both of them combined into one, just now without the mask, and very fitting too, because the character originally had a mask unit, but now left the faction, so now she doesn't have the mask stuff anymore, hence now we get this. I was actually expecting this to be shown in the anime, but it never did, so this was actually a surprise that they actually revealed this, and I overall just happy to see it. It does fix one of the issues that the deck did have, and it's the fact that you need criticals in Soul. This whole deck revolves around Soul charging triggers, but mainly crits because crits is the one that gives you power. But with this new version, you can now use the original Astroeas as part of the crit count. At least for some of the stuff. Not for everything, but it does fix some of the issues that the deck did have that you need to solely rely on crits. But on that, let's just begin with the deck profile with, of course, the ride deck. So we start off, same ride line with Michi, and then we go to Sparta. So when rolled upon by the grade 2, you soul charge 2, and if one of them happens to be a crit, you draw a card. With the second skill where on rear guard, this will be relevant. You bind a trigger card from your soul and give it plus 10k. That just basically extends your trigger count, but if you do it with a crit, it just extends your crit count, which is actually the more important part. And then we go to Dinah, where when rolled upon by Astroea, you call this along with the Sparta. So basically call the grade 2 and grade 1, so that's pretty nice plus 2 because it is actually very helpful. Now the second skill might not be as useful since you're going to be having other skills to help you out with that, where once per turn you can counterblast 1 and put 2 trigger cards from your drop zone into your soul, and then plus 5k. Helpful sometimes if you need it, but you have other stuff to help you out with that, so it's not like you really need it, but it's there if you do. And now we go to the new form of Astroea, Dualmajestar, Astroea Bico Stellar. Yes, it's still considered as Dualmajestar, just Dual and Dualmajestar combined as one name, but it's still treated as Dualmajestar as the archetype. So first off, it has a completely new skill where at the beginning of your main phase, if you did not ride this turn, you can discard a card from your hand and ride this from your bind zone as stand and activate the persona ride. This is very huge, especially because of the next skill. But this is definitely going to be very nice that you're going to be able to use this as quote-unquote a substitute crit count, because it's going to be relevant for the next skill where when this card attacks, cost counterblast 1, soul blast 3, bind all the crits and Astroea units for the cost, and then this card gets all the following abilities. So if you have at least one of those bound, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it, and your whole front row gets plus 5k. If you have at least 3, crit plus 1, drive plus 1. If you have at least 5, choose one of your rear guards and stand it. So original one gives you the power and the crit and the drive, while the mask gives you a restand. Just basically a combination of the two into one. Just a little weaker because it only gives 5k to the front row rather than basically a huge buff from one restanding rear guard and itself for 2 attacks like from mask. So there is some downsides. And the other downside is that this one does cost you counterblast and soul blast 3 just like mask, which you do kind of need to watch out for. But overall, this is a very huge upgrade. The fact that you can use Astroea as cost is just huge because there's ways to soul charge this, especially choice soul charge this. And that extra addition where you can use itself as persona right from the bind zone is also really huge. I really love that you can, not only that this could be a substitute crit, it could be as a extra persona ride from the bind zone, since you're most likely not going to be drawing into them if you're putting this into soul. And I still like that it retains the original 2 forms into one. Just not as strong as the restanding rearguard one, but still overall pretty good. Another downside is that you do need 5 for the restand. So first grade 3 ride, you're most likely going to get 3 to 4 if you include Sparta, but second grade 3 ride is where you're going to get the 5th. So it is still a bit slow to go full power, but still a pretty good upgrade. And then of course, next up, 3 more copies because not only for persona ride, but also as a substitute crit. And speaking of substitute crit, I am deciding to run the original 2 copies of Astroea Unica. Not Mask, you could put Mask instead, but this is mainly here for a substitute crit as another target so you don't completely lose all your copies of the original Astroea, just in case of damage zone reasons and other stuff. And another reason is that so you don't need to put criticals in your soul and lose triggers from the deck sometimes. But anyway, you're not really going to use it for its skill, but if you do need to know is that, and it's free of counterblast, you can Soul Blast 3, bind all the critical triggers, and then for every critical trigger in the bind zone, activate these skills. If you have at least 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it. If you have at least 2, crit +1, at least 3, drive +1. So like I said, it's just basically one of its previous forms, now in the Bico Stellar. With the second skill, where it's combined with the first skill, where every trigger that you Soul Blasted for the cost, you choose one of your units and gets plus 5k power. So the 5k power buff is on the new form as well. So it's not like you're going to ride this, but if you need to, it is here. And also no counterblast, so it does actually help sometimes. You can choose to go for Mask if you wish, and then run Mask of Hydrogram since you do still actually have space for it, but it's personally up to you. And then next up to her attack name order card, Celiosphere. So this one basically just, if your Vanguard's Astroea, just put 3 trigger cards from your drop zone into your soul and countercharge 1. And if you remove a Astroea unit, crit +1, which you're not going to do because that's only with Mask. But it is nice that you can refund your resources, and the extra countercharge is very helpful because this is the only card that countercharges for the deck right now. So you're just going to kind of need it. And then finally for the last grade 3, it's the new card, Cardfight Chimera. So, when placed on rearguard, if you have at least a grade 3 Astroea, put a card from your hand to soul to draw a card and then plus 5k. This is very helpful because it's choice soul charges from your hand, which not too many cards from Astroea actually does that for some reason. So just having a way to choice soul charge is just nice. But the other part is that on Rearguard Guardian, if your bind zone has at least 3 cards with crits or Astroea, it gets plus 10k shield, and it gets the intercept ability. Very nice that it's a 10k shield interceptor, and also choice soul charges, hence why it's decent out of 4 of. And it's better than most cards that Astroea has right now. So that's it for the grade 3 lineup. For the grade 2 lineup, Griffin Chimera. This is one of the best early game upset cards that you have, because on place, if your Vanguard's Dualmajestar, you can discard a card from hand to look at top 2 cards of your deck. One goes to hand, and the other one either goes to soul or top of your deck. Depending on the scenario, that's very helpful, and the nice part is that you could still stack the top card of your deck. So this is just one of your best early game rushers, and if you need to, just put it to soul. It's not a bad idea. But also, the discard doesn't really matter too much because you're going to be soul charging from the drop zone a lot. So that discard doesn't really hurt much. And then Stella Chimera. So on place on rearguard, if your Vanguard is Dualmajestar, choose a card from drop zone, put in soul, but if it's trigger, plus 5k. The trigger part is probably not going to be too relevant here because you're going to be having other cards soul charging your triggers before this one gets to activate. So that's a little unfortunate, but just putting any card to soul can help because it's just another soul. But the second part is the main part where if it's restood by your Dualmajestar's ability, it gets 1 crit. It's basically another rearguard attack with some extra pressure in it. Originally this was for Mask, but now this just also works with Stellar as well. So extra rearguard attack with an extra crit is always very nice. And then finally for the last grade 2, Phonographic Oppressor. So placed on rearguard, if your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Dualmajestar, you can counterblast 1 to draw a card. You'll use it sometimes because extra draw power is always nice, but it is a counterblast, so you still might not do it. But the main part is the second skill with it, where during your turn, for every 2 crits in your bind zone, plus 5k, and considering that over time you're going to be stacking a lot, this is definitely going to be getting a lot of power, especially if it's restanding. And so that's it for the grade 2 lineup. For the grade 1 lineup, the main grade 1 that you must run is Bifront's. This is the one that really fixes the deck ever since it was introduced. So first off, when placed to rearguard from hand, you can counterblast 1 to look at top 3 cards of your deck. 1 goes to hand, 1 goes to soul, and 1 goes to drop. That is always very helpful, especially from the drop zone. It doesn't really matter because you can just always soul charge from the drop zone. Now the second skill is what really fixes the deck, because you can Soul Blast 1 and Energy Blast 3 while your Vanguard's Dualmajestar to search your deck for either 1 Astroea unit or 1 trigger and put it to your soul. And if you do that, you also Superior Call a unit from your drop zone. Hence why the first skill doesn't even really matter if you put the card in the drop zone because it just gives you resources anyway. But not only that, you soul charge directly from deck a Astroea unit or a crit. Because you can now Persona Ride and substitute the Astroea unit as a crit, that extra part is just very helpful, especially makes Stellar even better. It just makes this card even better on top of it because now you have an alternative choice to actually put to soul rather than put another trigger. And not only that, it also revives something, which is also very huge. It fills up field if you actually need it. You just can't call itself, but no matter what, you're gonna really need a board sometimes. So this is just an instant 4-up because of that, but no matter what, extra pluses is always pretty nice. Especially since this deck doesn't use energy other than with this card. And then next up, Plutonic Prospector. I only have 2 copies at the moment. I might actually run 2 more in place of the 2 Astroea Unica. But anyway, the skill is at the end of battle, this unit boosts while your Vanguard is either Dualmajestar or Evil Eye. You put this assault to look at the top 5 cards of your deck for 1 grade 3, which could even be your Persona Ride or your Order card. So that's always pretty nice, hence why I do kind of want to run this at 4 of. But at the same time, I want those extra substitute crits, so it's just up to you. With the second skill is if you have at least 2 trigger units in the bind zone plus 10k shield. So 15k shield is also pretty nice. Another reason why you might want to run more of these, but 2 is also pretty decent number. So I do say if you're on a budget, 2 might be good enough. And then finally, Twin Marble Dragon. I decided to put this card back in since I have space for it. So when you Soul Blast 3 or more cards at the same time, you can look at the top card of your deck, either put it soul or leave it at the top. And then after that, this card comes with 2k power, so it's a 10k booster that also lets you peek at the top card of your deck, which is quite helpful sometimes. And I used to like this card a lot, but I had to take it out for spacing reasons. But since I have space again, I decided to just run this back again. And then finally 4 PGs, because PGs. Trigger lineup, over trigger, 8 crits, you have to max it out because you need those crits. 3 draws, so you could get your pieces faster, and 4 heals, 2 beam counters. And so that's it for this deck profile on my Astroea Bico Stellar deck. What do you guys think of it? What other cards would you recommend and what other changes would you make? Personally, I do like the deck as it is right now. It was just a surprise to see a new Astroea unit, even though it didn't get shown in the anime and a character actually played it. But overall, I just like it. And I just like the part where you can substitute the Astroea unit as a crit. But other than that, the deck still kind of functions the same as the original Astroeas, just now a little bit stronger and with a little few tweaks, and just now without using the mask. It still suffers from the same issues that it kind of did back when it was introduced, where you do still need those crits and the rulings where you can only max up a certain trigger to 8. So it does still have those issues, but the part where they've kind of fixed where you can just use a substitute is just helpful. I do kind of wish that they use more substitute cards for like regular units, not just the boss unit, but overall it does help out the deck a bit and it's just pretty awesome. But other than that, if you're looking for a budget deck, this is also pretty budget friendly, other than Bifronts technically, but even Bifronts isn't like super expensive. So if you want to say budget deck, this is kind of budget, so go ahead and build it if you want. But other than that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.